Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Brent Venables, the Oklahoma Sooners continue to get it done in the transfer portal, landing one of the premier prospects available in the portal, Deion Burks, former wide receiver at Purdue. You guys see on the screen, top 20 overall prospect in the transfer portal, the number 3 wide receiver according to 24/7 Sports. And as a Big Ten guy, as a Michigan fan, a lot of experience watching Deion Burks. And I'll tell you this, there was not a ton of good things that happened in that Purdue offense last year. When the good things happened, it normally had to do with Deion Burks having the football in his hands, a guy that can do a lot of different things, including yards after the catch. I think he separates at all 3 levels of the football field. Really excited to get into Deion Burks and talk a little bit about what the Oklahoma Sooners are doing in the transfer portal. Before we get into it, just want to say thank you to you guys and a special shout out to the Oklahoma fans. The amount of support you guys continue to show the boys, it really does mean a lot. Y'all know how much I love talking about this program, whether you're following the recruiting trail with us, the transfer portal, or getting on and celebrating Danny Stutzman coming back to the Sooners. Your support means a ton. It allows me to do what I do, so I cannot thank you guys enough. If y'all do enjoy the content and you want to support the fellas, consider subscribing to the channel. And without further ado, let's get into Deion Burks. And I think my favorite part about Deion Burks is how he fits in this Oklahoma offense. You look at this Oklahoma offense and what they want to do. They want to get their guys out in space. And a guy like Deion Burks is phenomenal when he gets the football in space. 47 catches for 627 yards and 7 touchdowns. Those numbers, to me, don't do justice to how good of a player Deion Burks was. Again, that Purdue offense was not very good. They struggled to stay on the field. And I don't think they really used Deion Burks to the capacity that they should have been. And so you put Deion Burks in this Oklahoma offense in a little bit more of an open setting. That's where I think he really does thrive. Now, how he fits into this Oklahoma room. You got some big bodies like Nick Anderson and Jaden Gibson. Y'all know how excited I am for Jaquez Petaway coming through as well. Andrel Anthony coming back from injury. Deion Burks, I think, balances out this receiver room, and we talked about it. This is an Oklahoma wide receiver group that is young, but extremely talented. And the best thing you can do to supplement that youth is go grab a guy that has produced at the Power 5 level like Deion Burks has. And you look at getting Jackson Arnold all the weapons that he can so he can step foot onto that football field in the SEC and be successful. That's exactly what the Sooners are doing. And that's why I'm such a fan of what Oklahoma has been doing in the transfer portal. You take a look at Deion Burks and what he does extremely well. The first thing you talk about is he's just twitched up. Like, he can create separation in his route trees extremely easy. He's very good at varying his speed, changing direction, whether he has the ball in his hands or whether he's running his routes. And the next thing I love is he's kind of a box checker. In terms of being a complete wide receiver, he wins at all 3 phases. You take a look at some of the numbers, over 12 passes caught, 10-plus yards down the field, another 5 that were 20-plus yards down the field. We talk about how Oklahoma at times felt like they were scrunched down and didn't test the deeper third enough. A guy like Deion Burks can kind of provide that element for the Sooners. But my favorite aspect about Deion Burks and why I think he fits so well in this Oklahoma offense is he's really good after the catch. And so I know we want to get rid of some of those swing passes and the screens, but he's a guy, a quick slant, a quick out, where you give him the football with a little bit of separation. He can make guys miss, has tremendous contact balance, and can hit the big play with the football in his hands as well. You start to look at this Oklahoma wide receiver room, a group that we had some questions about heading into the 2023 season. The young guys stepped up. Now you add another playmaker in Deion Burks. I love how the Sooners are just getting Jackson Arnold all the things that he needs to be successful. In an era of college football where you see a lot of stud quarterbacks not have the tools they need, Dante Moore out in UCLA, I think, being the best example, Oklahoma is making sure that Jackson Arnold is going to have the playmakers around him to have success in the SEC year one. Fired up about Deion Burks. Want to talk a little bit about what the Oklahoma Sooners are doing in terms of their transfer portal philosophy. And last year, you saw Oklahoma get really aggressive in the transfer portal. And I think that was out of necessity. Brent Venables was left the roster by Lincoln Riley and Alex Grinch, especially on the defensive side of the football, that I don't think was up to his standard. And so he went to the transfer portal and added a lot of difference makers on the defensive side of the football. This year, I think you're going to see a little bit more of a selective approach in terms of the transfer portal. I don't think you'll see 20 plus guys added through the portal. And I think that speaks more of not Oklahoma losing recruiting battles in the transfer portal, but a little bit more of, hey, Brent Venables and the staff are very not content. I think they'd be fired up about what they have on the roster and what they have coming in the high school class. And so they don't feel the need to go out in the transfer portal and completely overhaul this roster like we see some other programs across the country do. And so there only might be 10 or 12 additions that Oklahoma makes in the transfer portal, but those are going to be really quality players that round out this depth chart. The transfer portal is more going to be supplementing this roster as opposed to using it as a roster construction practice. And again, I think that's the recipe. Now, you look at some of the top schools, Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, they don't go out and get 20 plus players in the transfer portal. They look at the roster. They've recruited the high school ranks really well and say, hey, where do we need to add either some depth, some experience, or some talent? I think that's what Oklahoma's philosophy is going to be. So getting a guy like DeJon Malone coming into a young secondary room with a ton of starting experience and relatively high upside with the frame that he has. Spencer Brown, a veteran tackle that has a ton of experience starting at the Power 5 level to come in and either add depth, competition, or a starting spot on that tackle. And then Deion Burks, a difference maker on the offensive side of the ball for the Oklahoma Sooners. So really happy to see what Brent Venables is doing in the transfer portal. And just want to quickly shout out some prospects that I think would be really nice additions. And the first guy we're going to talk about, I'm sure many Oklahoma fans have heard the name, and that's Chris McClellan, former Oklahoma guy. In terms of, I watched back some Florida games. This was actually some of his true freshman stuff. So 2 years ago, so much talent. And I would caution Oklahoma fans for kind of writing him off due to lack of production, because when you watch Chris McClellan play, all the traits are there of being a high-quality defensive lineman at the Power 5 at the SEC level. You just got to give him reps, and you got to give him some development. And let's be honest, we haven't seen the Florida Gators exactly do a great job developing guys on that defensive line. If you can get him into Oklahoma, I think this guy could be an all-conference type player. I think that's how good he is. And when you see the flashes, those flashes are at a high level. I think Oklahoma is going to go after him. Well, we know they're going after him. They offered him. I think this would be a massive addition, because what he can do in terms of development that Oklahoma staff can offer him, I would be really excited about adding a guy like Chris McClellan. And the last guy I want to talk about, someone we've already mentioned here, is Mario Anderson, the South Carolina running back transfer. We lost Tawi Walker. We're really happy about what Gavin Sawchuk brings to this offense. But Tawi Walker, I know he had some off-the-field stuff, but when he was on the football field, he provided an element in that Oklahoma run game that was extremely valuable. And that was being a bruiser. That was being a physical presence in that run game. With Tawi Walker leaving, Mario Anderson is really just a clone of Tawi Walker. I mean, 5'9", 210 pounds, averaged almost 5 yards per carry behind a South Carolina offensive line that stunk in the SEC. This is a guy that could be a workhorse, is extremely physical, plays with an extremely high motor. And again, replacing Tawi Walker, I couldn't think of a better running back to replace what Tawi Walker brought to the Sooners in 2023 than a guy like Mario Anderson. Now, there are going to be some other guys that emerge as Oklahoma targets. These are the few guys that I'm keeping my eye on for the Sooners in the next couple of days and weeks. We'll continue to update you guys as we kind of get some more players that Oklahoma is interested in, that they're interested in coming to Norman. But Deion Burks, a guy that was supposed to visit Texas at some point, ends up coming to Norman. And I think it shows that this new offensive staff, Seth Littrell and company, can get it done on the trail. And I think the Sooner fans have to be extremely excited about Deion Burks coming to Norman. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. All the support from the Oklahoma fans. It means the world. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.